house and he wanted to start at 450. He's like, well, we'll start at 450. So it was that whole, he had to run down the whole thing of like, how does that, you know, does, sorry, was I muted? I'm like all frazzled
You
this morning.
you muted for like 0.5 seconds. You're good.
Okay, great. Sorry. um, anyway, but like, we talk on these calls all the time. Like, how do you get somebody to realize that that's not the right price and get them down? And it took a while. We did get it down, but yeah, just going through all the stuff. So I'm sure if you guys want to talk about that, I mean, that's something we deal with all the time. I don't know if that's a specific situation. I also have one that has a shared water line with a neighbor that is crazy. How do you have a shared water line, you guys? It has an easement from the 40s and it's still sharing the same neighbors for years that were buddies and shared it. And now, of course, it's not the same neighbors. So
Do
they're
they
like
share the
cutting.
bill?
Yes, they share the bill. So it's
Wow.
billed to the one person who actually owns the water line, and the neighbor for years just paid them half. They had an agreement, but there is a deed that has an easement to this water line. But the new neighbor, the person who inherited the house now, the one that supplies the water line, cut the neighbor off. And that's my client is the neighbor who's been paying the water bill for half the time. And then it was their father's house and they've now owned it for 5 years. And they've been paying for it and they just cut it off. But in case y'all want to know, if there's an easement, they have the right to go into that property and turn it back on without being trespassing. So anyway, we had to get an attorney involved. It was crazy.
Just I'm not even going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, but like, where is this?
It's in Deer Park.
Really?
Yes. There's two houses on the corner across from each other. They both have houses directly next to them that they both share a water line. So our theory, because the houses were built in the 30s, is that probably the house that's on the corner was the main house. And they had enough land that they're like, oh, we'll build a house for grandma or we'll build a house for a family member. And they tapped into the same water line to share it for all those years. But they did it as an easement so that the other house would have access to it to maintain the water line is what it said. But they're lucky they did find the deed that had the easement on it. But yeah, you want to talk about a crazy situation. Yes, in Deer Park. It's actually in Ross Moines, which is like Dillonvale, Deer Park.
Well, I hope nobody else ever has to deal with that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, well, call me if you do. It's a weird one.
All right. So here's the situation. I will be the seller. I've lived in my house for, let's call it 25 years. And a buddy of mine told me that he thinks I can list it for 450. My agent says that it's probably a 375 house. Who wants to be the agent?
I mean, I've already done it, so it's you guys. I did get in 400, by the way. So you guys,
Nominate TJ.
Yeah, I figured Smooth as Butter's name would come up here. TJ.
TJ should be the agent.
Or anybody. I'll be the agent if somebody else would be the seller, but whatever.
Yeah, be the agent. Somebody else should do it. I always talk.
So somebody beat me up. Hey, Nick. Be Charles.
It's trying to avoid it.
Yeah, well, sometimes you gotta get uncomfortable to learn, right?
All right.
So, all right. So, Charles, as we're looking at these comps, everything in the neighborhood, we got a 3-bedroom, 2-story house, and in the neighborhood, it looks like, if we want to get the home sold in a reasonable amount of time, my suggestion is that we put the house on the market for 374.9 or 375, and I think we'll get good results and offers within the first 2 weeks. Are you okay with that?
Well, my neighbor's real estate agent, no, my neighbor's friend said it would sell for 425.
Wow, 425. Did they show you any evidence of other homes that had sold for 425?
No, they just think with all the additions I've done in my awesome backyard and all the work I put into it that it's worth well over 4.
Okay. Well, Charles, when we're helping you price the house, my number one goal is to make sure that we get you the most money. And if you're okay with it, let's have a conversation about facts, not emotion. Is that okay?
That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. So when buyers are looking in the market, their biggest fear is missing out on something and overpaying for stuff. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we put your house on the market and a buyer sees that you're priced about $50,000 higher than what a house like yours sold for recently, that might give them a little hesitation, and it might make them feel like that they can find something better for that money. And what you told me is that you wanted to get the most money out of the house. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. So if you're looking at a house, Charles, and it's been on the market for, let's say, longer than average, let's say the house has been on the market for 30 to 60 days with no price reductions and it hasn't been pending yet, what kind of signals does that send to you?
It's probably overpriced.
Yeah.
It's
So,
nothing.
so when a house is overpriced, what we find is buyers don't want to offend the seller. They'll just go keep looking. And then the seller ends up making a price reduction after price reduction until they finally get it to where the market will start to respond to it. Now, let me ask you a question. If a house has been on the market for 60 days and there's no offers, and you're a buyer, what's your first reaction when you go to make an offer?
I want to know what's wrong with the house or why it hasn't had an offer.
Right. And it's hard to put a price on that question. What's wrong with the house? So if you do like the house and you end up making an offer, what kind of offer are you going to make on a house that's been on the market for a while with no other offers on it?
Lower than asking.
Yeah. And what we find in today's market is that buyers have all the information, and the first showing that they do on your house is actually when they look at the price online, they look at the photos online, and they make a decision if they even want to come look at it. So when we get them there and they start seeing that they actually like the house, but there's no competition of other buyers, there's a good chance that they're going to make an offer that's lower than if we priced it right the first time and there was competition.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So my recommendation is going to be to price it at where the market is today. And I believe that's $375,000. And I do believe without too much uncertainty here that we'll get an offer within the first couple of weeks at that price. But what concerns me is if we price it where your friend says at 425 without any factual information, that we're going to sit on the market and people are going to wonder what's wrong with your house.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Nick is easy. He's an easy seller.
Yeah, he didn't push back too hard. Like
He
some
sure
sellers.
didn't.
I know, because this situation is what we're actually dealing with, and I want to call him when we get off of here really bad, actually.
Yeah. So what some sellers are going to throw out is, well, let's just price it a little higher with room for negotiation. So what would you guys say if I'm a seller and I say, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't price it at 425. Can we price it at 400 so we got a little room to negotiate? How would you handle that?
I've been, one thing that I really like to do on this is use a comparison point. So let's say that you're into watches, Aaron. We'll just play this out a little bit. Yeah, you wear a nice watch, or let's say they're into cars. It really doesn't matter. So, I can tell by your watch, you're a watch guy, right? Let's just play this out a little bit. Let's say that there's a Submariner, great Rolex watch, right? It's an $18,000 watch. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say that I go ahead and I put that online and I promote the heck out of that for $8,000. All right. That's dramatic. That's a deal. Would you agree?
Yep.
What do you think is going to happen if I did that?
Oh, I'd probably sell it for well over 8.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to go crazy, right? You're going to get a ton of attention. You're going to get a ton of people that want it, and somebody's going to get a heck of a deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the difference with houses. If we put your home on for even just a little bit less than it's worth, okay? Let's say that you're right. It's worth 425 and we put it on at 375. I'm way off. Same thing's going to happen. We're going to get a ton of activity, and it's a little bit different because you can't just take it off the shelf. People are going to bid on it, and that's going to walk it up. Now, if I'm wrong, it's going to end up near where you want to be. Does that make sense? But what happens if you're wrong?
Well, if I'm wrong, then it just sits there.
It just sits there. Yeah. And
if you price that same watch that's an $18,000 watch at $25,000, I don't see anybody buying that.
no, it's going to sit there. And frankly, it's going to frustrate people. Just like when you and I look at a watch and you're like, what are they doing? It's frustrating. And houses almost become like bread. You sit them out too long, they become stale, and nobody wants to eat it. So we can do it one of two ways. I'll do it your way, but I'll tell you, it's not going to go well. Or you can trust my experience. We do this almost 100 times a year. Let's price it the right way and let's watch this thing run. Which one makes more sense for you?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Are there enough buyers out there right now to, if we did price it your way, that you think we would get a lot of attention?
That's a great question. No matter how many buyers are, we're going to get way more attention at 375 than 425. My experience tells me that we're going to have a good number of buyers. Can I say we're going to have hundreds of offers? No. But at 425, frankly, Aaron, we might as well not even put it on the MLS. It's going to get zero attention. And people in houses are the same. We love attention. We need to price it competitively.
I love that. So Amber, I think you used the same kind of approach the last time we did a script thing about pricing, but you used cars. I think it was like a Ford Taurus, or like you used some kind of example like that. If you guys know watches like TJ and myself, and you can kind of throw ideas out there, and your client seems to be understanding about that stuff, great. If you see that they've got a Toyota Sienna minivan in the driveway, just give examples on things that they can relate to outside of housing, because if it makes sense for cars, the same principles apply with the real estate stuff.
I always use a comparison of cars. I can't listen as much as I can appreciate a watch, TJ. I own a Swatch watch from like the 80s. So, and it's not worth anything. I already looked.
Yeah. One of the things I did, and I don't pull this out a lot, but one of the things I did one time when I had a client they wanted to be, I think it was probably like 10 to 15% overpriced. So they weren't close. It was pretty far off. I said, well, Matt, if we're going to price it at 450, we might as well price it at 600. I think the reaction on the market's going to be about the same. And his eyes were like, wow. Like, I'm like, look, we can ask $1 million for the house, but the reality is the market's going to bring what it's going to bring. It doesn't really matter how much I want to get you or how much you want out of the house. Buyers and agents have the information out there on what the house is worth. So,
and I will say with price, I think if you're doing a lot of business, it's a lot easier to have these conversations because you don't have the fear of loss as much. And I don't want to undervalue that, right? If you've got no listings and somebody wants to list $50,000 higher, it's easy for somebody with 10 listings to say, you should walk away. Like, we live in the real world. Now, if you're going to take an overpriced listing, you need to let them know it's overpriced, or you are setting yourself up for abject failure.
mm-hmm.
So if you just say, you know what, like, I'm not in a position where I can't take a shot on this, you at least need to let them know that it's overpriced. And I would even argue have a plan on what to do when it eventually does not sell at their price.
And put it in writing, because they never remember what you say, because you're saying a bunch of stuff. So I usually will send an email afterwards and, copy whoever, all the parties involved, or a transaction coordinator if I feel like I want somebody else in there. And I'll say, hey, to recap our conversation. And then I put it out that way. By the way, that's what ChatGPT and Google Gemini are really good for that. Because I usually say what I feel, and I'm like, make this nicer.
Yeah. Let's flip over to the buyer side now. Let's hear some objections from the buyer side. What do you think are common objections these days from buyers? Is it around financing? Is it around offer price? What do we?
I think offer price, Aaron. I mean, that seems to be, because now buyers are starting to see like, oh, well, now we can get a deal because the market is changing, but they think it's changed drastically, and it really hasn't changed drastically. Whereas sellers think it hasn't changed at all. So we got to have everybody meet in the middle. So, if the house is on the market for 2 days and you're wanting to come in and offer 50,000 under, then you could do it, but you might be wasting your time too. So I think that's where buyers are. I had somebody call me and they had anyway, big, long story, and I don't want to get into it, but basically they were like, well, our agent wouldn't make an offer on this house. And I was like, oh, that's weird. But that was a red flag to me, of course, about the buyer, not about the agent. And I looked up the property they were talking about, and it had just been sold maybe 2 years ago. Same owner, it wasn't a flip or anything. I think it was a situation where the people had to sell, and they weren't priced too much more than where they had bought it for. And these people wanted to come in like 50,000 under. And I said, this house, they just bought this 2 years ago. You can bet they still have all this money tied up in this house. And if they're selling now, they've got to sell. So you are wasting their time and you're wasting mine, frankly. So, I didn't write it for him. I didn't. And I said, this is not for me. So, I mean, but again, like TJ said, if you're in a position where you can't do it, you've got to be nicer than I was. But I was a little PO'd about it. So anyway, but yeah, that's, I think, where buyers are. They think, oh, well, it's an opportunity to get a deal now. And it's really not an opportunity to get a deal necessarily if the house is priced right and in a good area.
Yeah. One point that I'm going to make is that if you're bumping your head up against hard conversations with buyers, my question is, at what point are we having the hard conversation? Is this at the time of offer? They want to go 50 grand below, or they want to come 25% off asking price. Is that when it is? Or is it like during the inspection negotiations? Where are we having trouble with the buyer? And the reason I say that is if you've done a decent enough job with a buyer consultation, the first question that I ask my buyers before we get into any sort of what kind of house are you looking for, or have you gotten pre-approved yet? The first question I ever ask anybody when I sit down is, what have you heard about today's market? I want to know what, like, did your aunt tell you, because she used to be a realtor 10 years ago, did she tell you that the market, like, you can get a deal right now? Is somebody still telling you that there's multiple offers and you can't buy a house in this market if you're going FHA? Like, what do you think? Like, what do you think's happening right now? Because if what you think's happening is 25% off every house, I'm going to make sure we get you in check there before we even start looking at houses. That way your expectations are realistic. If I think you're in tune with the market, but you're thinking every house you look at, we look at a $275,000 house and you think you're going to get it for $250 or $225, it's going to be pretty tough when we go to write an offer and I have to bring you down to reality a little bit, right? So all of this begins with a buyer consultation and setting expectations before you get there. Now, let's just hypothetically say that we had a buyer walk into a house for $275 and they want to offer $225. How are you guys handling that?
I mean, sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot today too. Sorry.
I love your voice. Keep going.
I think at that point, but yes, I agree with you, Aaron. You have to have those conversations with them way ahead of time too. So you're kind of managing expectations and you're understanding what they believe the market to be. So you can, educate, I should say, gently educate them. But if we go into a house, then I'm usually just going to present the facts. Okay, well, this is only been on the market 2 days. Or sometimes I say, that seems a little low to me, but why don't I run some comps and I'll give the buyer's agent a call, because before we would write something like that up, I want to gauge what's going on with the house. So I kind of put it off that way. And then usually, sometimes I'll just message the agent and go, hey, you got offers on the property or whatever. So I can bring back a level of information that proves to them. It's kind of like an I told you so, but in a way that's like, oh, look at the work I'm doing for you. So I've done it that way too. Thankfully, I haven't had too many buyers who are like that. That other one I was telling you about kind of called me out of the blue. They knew my cousin or somebody anyway. But yeah, but I usually bring information to them that I can present to them and say, well, it's been on the market 2 days. This is, in an area that's pretty hot. Let me just kind of see what's going on with this house. And then I'll let you know.
Right. Okay. Who else?
And I would agree with that wholeheartedly. I think it's the biggest thing that we find every single day is, to your point, Aaron, education. Educating the buyer or the seller on the current market status. And I like that entry, because that's the first question that we ask as well. What has made you decide today that you want to buy a home? And what do you know about the current market status? That is a question that we ask. Our team asks that as well. And what we're trying to find out is their time frame. Are we a buyer in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, that kind of thing, or today, and when you said you have a client that's got to buy in 2 weeks, that's what we try to figure out right away is, hey guys, what's the time frame? What do you know about the market? And then also I agree with what Amber said, that, it's like, okay, you want to go in $50,000 less. What made you think of that number, on this house? Because here are the facts and the data on this house. It's been on the market 2 days, or it's been on the market 47 or 67, but it's been under contract twice. So I think it's always the agent's benefit to look at the history, reach out to that, agent to say, hey, give me a little history, because, we looked at some homes yesterday with a past client referral that, there's a house that's been on the market 139 days, what have you. Okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the house. So once we did some due diligence, talked to the agent, found out what the scoop was, then I feel more comfortable why that house has been on that long, right? So now it's just a matter, because the first thing he said was, "Oh, well, we can get this for 50,000 less." That's exactly what he said, right out of the gate. And I said, "You know what, Mr. Buyer, very possible, but however, let me just further look at some market data for you before we, make that drastic of a low price offer." So it's always just educating them and asking the questions on what their hot buttons are.
Yeah. So anybody ever watch Ted Lasso? I'm not a TV watcher, but I saw
Yes, love that show.
yeah, I like watching the clips. I don't want to invest the time into watching TV, but I like watching the clips. Somebody sent me one time where he's playing darts, and somebody just assumed that he just wasn't good at darts, and he ends up like crushing this dude. And the whole point of the thing was be curious, not judgmental. Right? So when a buyer says, "Hey, let's make an offer for 50 grand less than list price," or they're trying to really just pull the rug, be curious, not judgmental, right? So my first question to the buyer is like, "Hey, let me just make sure I understand this. They're asking $275,000 for this house, and you knew it when you walked in here. Are we offering 225 because that's what you feel like it's worth, or you just want to make sure you're getting a deal?" Right? They say, "I don't want to overpay for it." They say, I want to buy it for less than market value or whatever. Then I might say, "Well, what do you think about me pulling up the market on this street in this neighborhood and seeing what other homes sold for, so that we can make sure that we know what a fair price is? Are you sure this is the house that you want to make an offer on?" "Yes, I'm sure." "Okay. Are you okay if we come in low and the seller gets pissed off at you because you came in low and kind of insulted them? Are you okay with losing the house if they don't want to deal with you anymore?" "Well, I don't want to do that." Like, okay, well then let's look at the facts and make sure that we're making a fair offer. I still want you to get a deal, but I don't want you to lose it just in case the seller falls on the side of emotion. Is that okay? Something like that. I just kind of pulled that out of the bag, but be curious about it. Why are they thinking that price? What made you come up with that? Are you looking to steal the house, or you want to make sure you're just not overpaying? Right.
Yeah, Aaron, I completely agree. I have the unique perspective only dealing with buyers on this call. So, but the thing that we use on the builder side a lot is 3 whys deep. And that's what I really like to, understand when people are saying something and trying to be curious, not judgmental, and understand why they think that way, and then bring in the education piece on, what it is that they're talking about, and if it's truly what they think it is. So I completely agree with everything you're saying there.
Yeah. Diana, you had your hand raised up.
Yeah. One thing I always tell them is, the first thing that's going to happen when I send this offer over is the listing agent's going to call me to ask me why our offer is so low. And in most situations, I'm going to be running comps, just like Amber. I'm going to be running comps to kind of share our position with them and why our offer is where it is. But if I run those comps in this situation, it's just going to hurt us. If I share those comps with them, it's going to support their listing price. It's only been on the market for a couple of days. So what reasons would you like for me to give the seller as to why our offer is so low?
Ooh, I like that. That's good. So if you guys lowball one of my listings, and if I know it's a lowball, like, I've gone to the seller before and be like, "See, I told you it's going to come in low. Like, nobody's going to pay your price for it." I've done that before. But if I believe in the listing price and I think we hit it right and we got plenty of activity and somebody shoots me a low offer, you know what question I'm going to ask you? "Hey, I see the offer. Is the price that you offered, is that what the buyer can afford, or is that what they believe it's worth? Because they may be at the top of their price point. They were just shooting Hail Mary just to see if it would pass. Like, you never know. But you also may get the buyers. Guys, not every agent's a strong agent. Some buyer's agents or seller's agents will cave so quick and be like, well, I told my buyer to offer more, but this is what they came up with. And like, now, the agent knows that they came in low, so keep your cards close to your vest and say, hey, look, I gave my client some advice. This is the offer that they chose to make, and shoot your shot. But Diana, I love that question. What reasons would you like me to give the listing agent when they ask me why our offer is what it is? I love that. What else? Tough stuff. Usual objection handlers. We got sellers that don't want to fix stuff and buyers that want to ask for too much. You guys want to hit any of that, or you got something different?
I've seen a lot of properties go on market for, the kind of the top of the market, but are sold as is, and they don't want to make any repairs. And there's a lot of them popping up around where we live now.
Yeah. Can
that's
anybody
popular.
anybody on this call tell me, what does sold as is mean?
And it's current
Sellers
condition.
are stubborn.
What'd you say, Brian?
Correct. I say in its current condition as you walk in, but I mean, it's already a red flag kind of to, you have a new buyer that is seeing as is, and I tell them, hey, this property is as is on the listing. So that could mean a number of things. They just don't want to do anything. It could be that the house is okay, or they could be kind of hiding something. I don't know.
What else? Somebody tell me what as is actually means.
The best way to find out is to call the agent directly and ask them, what does that mean? Because it could be part of an elderly parent who no longer lives there and they're handling it. Maybe the parent's alive, but they can't do any repairs. The son's out of state. Who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of crazy situations. But in those, if someone's really interested, I usually call. Does that mean that they're not willing to make repairs? Are they willing to negotiate? Is there a problem? And just, be curious, Aaron.
That's right. I love it. We're learning. So if you, first of all, if I'm a buyer's agent and I see you put as is in the thing, I'm calling the listing agent. Hey, what's wrong with it? Oh, no, we don't believe anything's wrong. The seller just doesn't have any funds to fix anything. Okay, that's clear. Or it could be as is. It's like, dude, it's got mold in the basement, foundation's falling apart. It's like you're getting it in its current condition. That's not worth the seller to fix it up. As is could mean, hey, you can still do an inspection. We'll give you a credit if you find anything, but we're not fixing anything. We're not hiring a contractor. We're not turning wrenches. We're not fixing anything. It could mean anything. When I have a seller that says, hey, I want to sell this as is, I ask them, what do you mean? Well, and then I say this, what if we put this on the market, we allow the buyer to do their inspections and just see what comes back? And if it's reasonable or not, we can just tell them we're not willing to fix it, or we'll give you a credit. Because when we put as is in there, that's a giant red flag. And most people have no idea what it means. They think something's wrong with the house. They don't know that you just don't want to deal with hiring a contractor.
And also, sellers don't always know what that means. They've seen it advertised. So they think, oh, great. Well, we don't want to do anything. So we want it to be written as is. And usually it also is just educating the seller. I'm like, hey, just so you know, that can be a red flag. And if you are willing to negotiate even a little bit, it's not as is. So let's just keep that off. And if you want me to have a conversation with the agents, then I can do that.
Well, and just like we did with the price, we can go to the seller. We can tell the seller, it's like, hey, Mr. Seller, I know you want to put as is in the agent remarks or in the marketing remarks, but let's just say that you were buying a new pickup truck and you go on the lot and the dealer says, hey, this one's as is. All these others don't say that, but this one says as is. What are you going to think about that truck? And then just kind of put the curiosity back on the seller, or just to make sure, like, hey, that does kind of sound fishy, doesn't it? So let's just let things play out here and see if the buyer wants it.
I also think, unless it's an estate sale, where meaning it's in an estate, which a lot of times those are as is, and that makes sense to me. But if you've got a seller that gives you a clean property disclosure and wants to sell as is, we need to dig a little deeper to protect our clients, right? Because my experience is if somebody has no intention on doing repairs, they often know that repairs are needed.
Yep.
And we need to make sure that we're not setting our clients up for failure, because we can tell them 100 times how important that property disclosure is. We need to let them know that litigious issues in real estate often come from not filling out that property disclosure to the best of our ability. So that's kind of a good little red flag rule. As is, clean property disclosure, need to dig deeper.
And what do you guys think about, sellers claiming ignorance to obvious defects in the home? I
It's
mean,
nonsense.
I run into it
Nonsense.
constantly.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
And the agent should, if they know about it too. It's our job to keep our sellers honest, in my opinion.
Right. I've unfortunately turned down sellers because they wouldn't disclose something that was evident. I mean, that can't come back on you as the agent.
Well, that's a great point that you bring up there too, Matt, because I often tell my sellers to disclose dumb stuff because it builds trust. Like obvious stuff that like, hey, we replaced the wall outlet in the front bedroom because the outlet wasn't working. Nobody discloses that stuff. It's not like the big deal, but the buyer sees like, oh, the seller went above and beyond to tell me every problem that they could think of with this house. I trust the seller on this thing. If you see clean property disclosures and gray painted floors in the basement and white painted walls in the basement, it's like, I don't know. I don't trust this thing. It's too clean.
Nope.
What else? Tough conversations you guys have had or weird situations?
I would say clients that you've worked with for a while and the market's changed during the time that you've had them. That one's pretty tough.
Yeah.
From like summer to the end of December or something like that. That's pretty tough to like, hey, yeah, this will work on this house at that time, but now we're here and it's completely different. I've had to do that maybe once or twice.
Man, that happened a lot between 2020 and 2023 because when they started shopping in 2020, the house that they were pre-approved for 300 and they could buy a lot.
Oh, man.
And then by 2022, they were still because they were picky, right? And by 2022, late in the year, they're like, man, we can't, like the houses that we were looking at before are now priced at 300. We can't afford, or at 400, we can't afford that. So I think TJ taught me a script, a good dialogue to have with somebody. If you go out and you show somebody 10 houses and they haven't bought one yet, you might want to have that buyer consultation over again. All right.
That was our rule of thumb when I was on Jen's team, that, if you've got to go and show them that so many, and then you go back and you revisit that conversation because they're either not ready or there's something else going on there, and you've got to figure it out so you don't keep pop-tarting around showing all these damn houses.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's for them as much as it is you as an agent. You can just go straight to that buyer and say, hey guys, I got to be honest with you. I feel like I'm missing something here. We've seen, 10 or 11 houses up to this point, and it seems like I'm not doing, I'm missing something. These are all kind of within what you told me you were looking for. What are we missing here?
I got a joke. It's don't become a bored couple's Saturday plan. Like seriously. And I think I have become that a few times. So you have to kind of identify that and, nip it in the bud.
Yeah.
Also it happens around the holidays too, because people are off work and they start scrolling Zillow and they do all this and like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to, we kind of have been thinking about the house. No, bullshit. You have not. You're just bored and on vacation and looking at houses.
Been there.
Well,
I think, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think with buyers, we also have a tendency not to push if they don't give us feedback on every house that we show them, and we need to, right? What do you like about it? I don't know. It's fine. And we don't want it to get uncomfortable. I think it's important to let them know, my goal is to tighten this funnel as we go so that I can find you the perfect house. If I don't know if you like, the height of the ceilings, the how open it is, you've got to let me know what you like and don't like, because I'm a matchmaker. And if I don't know if you like brunette or blonde, I'm gonna just keep throwing things at the wall to see what sticks, and that's not doing either of us a service. Does that make sense? You're gonna say, yeah. So what do you love about the house? So I take it one step further, because a lot of times people they don't want to, they don't care to tell you, but that doesn't mean it's not important information.
You hit a key, Robbie, I'm gonna call on you in just a second. But you hit a key point about getting feedback on every single house. One of the things that if I'm showing more than 3 houses in one time, right? I tell them on the first house, hey, we're going to rank every house that we see today. And the reason we do that is because the more houses we see, the harder it is to keep up with where they stack. Okay. So this first house, I'm going to have you give it a score 1 through 10. If it's below a 6, we're not even coming back to think about it. Okay. But I have them rank them, and then like as they go, they're like, well, hey, that first house we saw actually is a 7 now that our expectations are clear on what we can get. This other house is out, and they start ranking them, and you become more in tune with like, okay, like now we got them stacked up. Robbie, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to just throw in a few different things because obviously there's been a lot via media with rates and things like that. So when you talk about objectives, especially, most sellers are buyers, obviously, and some buyers are sellers in this market. And we forget that, I don't think we forget, but we forget that we do this as a career. And for them, it's just this one transaction, X amount of years. So it's very emotional for sellers and buyers on both ends of things, right? So objections that I think are going to be the norm in 2026, and you guys have probably been handling this for the last couple of years, is that one, appreciation has slowed down over the last couple of years because of where rates were. So, right, obviously sellers are still expecting 2020, 2021 numbers, but that doesn't really exist in this market. Not saying that we're not creating appreciation, we are, but it's slower now than it has in the years past. Buyers are still paying top dollar for homes. They're still at 6% rates right now, where they're going to be a little bit more picky and things like that. So just to give you some context, this time last year exactly, so 12 months ago, the national average for interest rates was 7%. It's dropped down to 6 now, right? So if appreciation was slow last year and sellers were okay, they're like, hey, we're not going to overprice, we're over list, we understand where the market is right now, but because rates have come down and rates are trending downwards, I feel like this year sellers are going to expect their homes to increase in appreciation, right? A little bit more than maybe 2023 or 2024. But at the same time, I think buyers are still going to be very, very picky and trying to nitpick every little home. So I think that's kind of what the mojo is going to be for 2026. But rates have come down a full percent within 12 months. So those are conversations you want to have with your past clients, obviously by refinancing and whatnot, but current buyers that you might have been working with for 6 months or a year, hopefully not any longer than that. But if you have clients that you've been working with for a couple of years, just let them know where the market is headed and then try to figure out those objectives before you start setting up appointments and showing homes at that point.
So Robbie, what's a 50-year average mortgage rate?
A 50-year?
Yeah, well, like over the last long term, what is the average mortgage rate? Like in the 1980s, they were 18%, and the 2020 was 3%. Like if you look at a long-term curve, what mortgage rate averages?
Well, I mean, if you look at all the way back from the 80s and 90s, you're probably going to be closer to anywhere between like 6 in the 6s, give or take, ballpark range. But if we take a glimmer of the last 10 years, right, the last decade, if you think about it, 2020, 2015 rates were hovering about 4.75 to 5.25. And I tell individuals this all the time. I think 2018 and 19 probably was where the economy was the most stable. It was 10 years after the housing market crash and whatnot. It was right before COVID, and we were hovering about 4% to 4.5%, right? So I think from an economy standpoint, right now, if we're at 5.75, 6%, I think we're still a full percent away from where, the public feels like they're in a very, very good position, not just only to sell, but to buy. I think the biggest thing is like, we always talk about these golden handcuffs, and I made a post last week. It's like, oh, I got a 3% rate. I can't sell. I don't want to go to 7. Well, if we have data backing us that over the last 2 years, rates have been trending downwards, and individuals that are currently owning homes, they have car payments, student loans, credit cards, and they're going to make top dollar and proceeds are going to be able to help them pay off other debt. It's great to kind of say, hey, in the history of mortgage rates, this is the norm, but but this is where we're headed in a year or two. So if you're serious about creating a better cash flow or putting your family in a better position long term, maybe right now is the time to sell. Maybe the right time is the perfect time to buy when not many buyers on the market at this point. So it's just how you frame it. But yeah, rates over a long period of time, it's 6% would be the average, I would say.
Yeah. So in the news last week, I think there was some sort of talk about investing a lot of money into Fannie and Freddie, which could drop the interest rate. Guys, you and I all know what's going to happen if that happens, right? If it drops rates quickly or significantly in a short amount of time. You guys remember 2020 when rates dropped and everybody was a buyer? So if somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to wait until that happens before I buy," you're going to secure the lead today. You're going to get name, phone number, email address. You're going to put them in a follow-up system, because the next thing you're going to say is like, "Hey, let's go ahead and get started with the process," because if that's your plan, when the rates do drop, you're going to be going to battle with all the other buyers that are out there right now. So I would recommend, let's go ahead and sit down for a buyer consultation so you're ready to rock and roll when that happens. You get them into a buyer consultation, they'll buy before the rates drop. If it even happens. It could just be smoke, so who knows? It's 10:46. Anybody want to share anything before we get out of here and go crush the week? All right, a couple of shout outs. Thanks for Robbie for being on the call. TJ Gossman, smooth as butter with his scripts. Just love what you bring to the table. And then go check out Home Exa. Matt Dill's on the call every week. He's got an app, AI powered, for looking up ages of furnaces and the brands and all that stuff. Home Exa. Is that on Google Play and all that other stuff?
Yes,
Matt?
sir. Go to homexa.app.
HOMEXA.app.
Yes, sir.
Robbie, you got parting words?
Yes. Hey, quick thought. I know it's mid-January, so just if you wanted to send a quick text to your past clients, mortgage companies are sending 1098s out this week. Some might have came out last week, but those are for tax purposes. If you have sellers, buyers over the last 2, 3 years, might be a good way just to connect with them. Just say, hey, you should get this in the mail. Just touch base with your lender if you haven't received it. Let us know if there's anything we can do to help XYZ. So,
And also, too, if you guys are looking for a way to reach out to your clients, the Cincinnati Home and Garden Expo is February 20th to the 22nd. It is also the following weekend, the 27th to the 1st. If you reach out to your clients and provide, you can say, hey, I'll get you tickets to the Cincinnati Home and Garden Show. If you're interested in going, just let me know how many tickets you want. You can buy them in bulk, and if you ask nicely, you might be able to get a few free ones.
Aaron, did you see my post?
No.
Oh, well, that's exactly what I did on Sunday, and I talked to 4 different families, and I'm sending it to them. So, yeah, I think you can get 4 free tickets, and then they're $6 each after that.
What a deal.
It's cheap as hell. So, I'd certainly recommend it because I've already sent 4 different families. So
it's so easy to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm offering this to my VIPs. Do you want to go or not?
Right.
Like it's such an easy touch, and it's giving. It's not asking for anything in return. All right, guys, go light that fire. Have a good week. Next Monday at 10 o'clock. TJ, you got something? You're just waving bye-bye.
Waving, baby.
All right, see you guys later.